How about that cigar?
How about that cigar?
Well, guys, it's episode 25 of How About That Cigar. So we're a quarter century old now. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. If you're listening on the audio podcast after the fact on whichever audio platform you listen on, thanks so much. We really appreciate it. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you make sure and don't miss new episodes when they come out. And if you are watching live on Facebook, please take a second and share us to your favorite Facebook cigar groups before they're banned forever from Facebook, because you know how they do.
That's a thing.
So Garrett, how you doing?
Dude, it's been a busy but good week, man.
Yeah,
I'm doing really well. Vikings won.
Yeah, football. We had beginning of the NFL season, so Vikings had a huge win.
Yep. Packers had a
Packers had a win. I mean, it was just really.
That was a tough game to watch.
It was a very tough game to watch, especially me being a diehard Green Bay Packer fan, but you being a diehard Minnesota Viking fan. That was, fun to see. They really dominated that game.
The fact when you can win by, a pretty decent margin, and your quarterback only attempts 10 passes.
Yeah.
Dude,
yeah,
that's fantastic. So that was great. In other NFL news, we had the Antonio Brown going to New England. We're going to talk about that here in just a few minutes. Yeah. We've got a special guest who has some ideas and opinions on that matter. But all in all, yeah, it was a great week. The Twins are still clipping along, and
yeah, the Twins, I mean, we lost 2 out of 3 to Cleveland, but we're still 5 games up. We started a series with the Nats tonight.
Yep.
I don't know where they're at. Right. I know the game's live right now. I don't know where the score's at, but
no.
And then we do 3 against the Nationals, and then we go against Cleveland again.
Yep.
So, I mean, we lost Michael Pineda.
Yeah.
PEDs. 3 years in a row, I think we've lost a pitcher to PEDs.
Yep.
And we I don't know who ended up in the lineup tonight. There were some questionable guys. Buxton's out pretty much, I think, period. He's gone, I think.
I'm pretty sure that's the case.
And then we lost Cave was hurt, and Kepler was hurt, and Sano. They were all on the list. I don't know if they made it in the lineup tonight or not, but
and our rock star pitcher is giving up dingers left and right.
Nice.
Yep. So,
well, guys, again, episode 25. How about that cigar? And one of the things that we've talked about so much in our early beginnings of this podcast is, really wanting consumers to be more involved. Even casual consumers who only maybe smoke 100 cigars a year or somewhere in that neighborhood. We want everybody to know as much as they can about these products that we love so much, and be involved and be engaged and know what's going on, really. And part of that is talking about tobacco and the way these cigars are made and things like that. And one of the people in the industry who just really has such a breadth of tobacco knowledge is Mr. Steve Saka from Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust. And we are very, very fortunate to have him on the broadcast tonight. So, Steve, welcome to How About That Cigar. How you doing this evening?
I'm good, guys. How are you?
We're fantastic.
Doing great. Honored to have you.
Yeah, we're honored to have you on the show, and we appreciate your time. And we know it's a busy time of year for you right now, but we're excited to talk about everything tonight. We can talk about football and tobacco and meat and everything else in between.
Okay.
So in the pre-show,
whatever,
I asked Steve if he was a New England fan, knowing that he's from the east side of the country, and he said yes, indeed. And we started talking about the Antonio Brown to New England, amongst a lot of other things.
Who?
AB.
AB. Okay. Well,
AB.
No, I think I've heard of him.
Yeah. We all agreed that that deal started at least 11 months ago.
Yeah, I don't. That was not. It was played off and given press as though it was a recent development, but That was in the works for a long time.
I'm
But-
not contributing to this conspiracy nonsense for the record.
So, Steve, being a Pats fan, what are your feelings on the AB moving over?
Well, you know, we always, it's kind of jokingly that whole "in Bill we trust" thing, but you know, there's a certain amount of truth to it. Look, this is not an unusual pattern for Belichick. He has this knack at picking up castaways or disgruntled superstar players, and they come in, and you know, sometimes it works out amazing, like Corey Dillon or Randy Moss, and other times it just kind of falls flat. But the thing about it is, every time this has happened in the past, you know, like Revis, for example, it wasn't that Revis was a problem player, but he really had kind of cooled. He wasn't the lockdown Revis that he was. You know, he kind of lost his step a little. And, you know, coming to the Patriots revitalized him, which then led to him getting a very large, substantial follow-up contract, but not from the Patriots. So when I look at these things, the deal makes a lot of difference. So I think basically we're kind of playing with house money. I mean,
Yeah.
looking at a $9 million contract. It's only a $6 million salary cap hit this year. Worst case scenario, it's a total bust, and you're out $9 million, which, I mean, sounds like a big deal, but in the long run, it really isn't if Antonio Brown can contribute. And I mean, I know right now we don't need him, but you know, who knows if you know, Josh Gordon's going to make it. You know, the guy, Josh Gordon's been a drug addict since what, the age of 12?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like he's a recreational drug user. You know, he's got a real problem that stems back to before he was a teenager. So you don't know that Josh Gordon's going to make it. You don't know, you know, Julian Edelman, we lost him for a season with an ACL. Any player is any game away from actually being out for the season. So I think Antonio Brown, you know, we all realize that we're in the twilight years of Brady's career. Now, I don't know when that is. I'm stunned that he plays the way he still plays, but we are in the twilight. You want to maximize that opportunity. So I think Antonio Brown is a good bet. The worst that's going to happen is we would have pissed away $9 million. And also, typical fashion of Belichick, we have the option for the second year, and it's entirely a team option. And we would get Antonio for $20 million the second year, which is about what the going rate was before he had this whole debacle in Oakland. He was at, I mean, what the deal with Oakland was, a $65 million contract,
Yeah.
with $30 million guaranteed. So, I mean, Antonio took a $21 million hit on guaranteed money. So, Antonio really, it's all up to him. I mean, he's going to come to New England. He's going to be given an opportunity, and he can make or do what he will with it. But I think if we have the same nonsense in New England, I find it very hard to think of a GM with a respectable club that's in contention would give Antonio a big contract.
Yeah.
I really think that this is kind of, it's more about what Antonio does. I think the off-field nonsense isn't going to be quite the level. Look, you're not going to get, social media is just part of the way things work.
Yeah. You can't get rid of that
You
now.
don't even care about social media because there's plenty of players that are on social media all the time. What you care about is stupid stuff on social media. So it's not that you don't want AB on social media. You just don't want him, you know, posting, you know.
No dick pics.
Right. You don't want him, you know, illegal recordings of you and your head coach. You don't want him Facebook Living your team, you know, post game, you know, locker room talks, you know.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want all of that. But I think the hardest part for AB is he going to be okay with being a 50 to 60 catches, 70 catches kind of receiver?
I think he's got an eye on a ring, so I think he's okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
That tends to be what happens.
He's looking for legacy. I think at this point he's legacy minded, and he's
legacy minded. But if he doesn't do well, and he doesn't fit in, how's he ever going to get his payday that he's wanted?
Yeah, exactly.
He's not going to get it. He just lost $21 million. Let's not kid ourselves. Now I know he has the potential to earn $15 million this year, but I mean that other $6 million, it's all based on performance. Like one of the millions, I think, is attached to 106 catches and over.
Yeah.
the chances of Antonio Brown getting 106 catches on a Patriots team is not likely.
That's very slim.
It's not. It's just not. I mean,
They spread the work out too much.
Yeah, it's just the ball spread around. I mean, you got Dorsett, you got Josh Gordon, you got Edelman, you got James White out of the backfield. Rex Burkhead kicks the ball. Hell, we have a fullback that catches balls. I think Devlin has one of the best receiver percentages on our team. I don't know if he's ever had a drop when he gets targeted. So, I mean, the ball gets really spread around. Even Sony Michel can catch a ball out of the backfield. So, I mean, it's like, I don't know. It's
boy, it's too bad you guys don't have any good players. I mean, seriously.
You know, it's so weird. It's such a feast or famine because literally we came out of the end of last season losing Gronk.
Yep.
We didn't know Gordon was ever coming back. We really pretty much just had Edelman. And we had Dorsett, who had a lot of promise, but got injured. So we never really saw him play much. We had Chris Hogan that had a few brief moments. But look, Chris Hogan's a number 3 on any team. I mean, I don't think Chris Hogan's a number 2 for most teams.
No, he's a number 3 on most teams, I think.
Yeah, so, I mean, we kind of came into this season, or before, you know, we came out of the last season with really almost the cupboards completely bare on the receiver core. And here we find ourselves in a wealth of riches that, well, you know what? Demaryius Thomas, we don't need him anymore. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Good it is that, we're going to ship Demaryius Thomas out, you know?
So, Steve, really quick, we're firing up the first time for both Garrett and I trying the Sober Mesa Brulee. So excited to try this one since it was announced before IPCPR. Unfortunately, we couldn't be at IPCPR, but I finally was able to get my hands on a couple of these, and we're excited to try it. Just to veer away from football really quick, just tell everybody a little bit about the Sober Mesa Brulee while we fire it up.
Yeah, it's an adaptation of the Sober Mesa blend. I've dropped out the Ligero, and I have I've increased the Base, the Seco from Condega in it. And then you've got the Ecuador, Connecticut wrapper. And the wrapper's aged, most of the wrapper's between 4 and 5 years old of bale aging on it. And it's a grade 2, not a grade 1, which doesn't sound very sexy, but that has to do with the way Connecticut shade tobaccos are graded. Color determines whether you could be a grade 1 or a grade 2. Only the really bright yellow and the kind of a slight greenish tinge, not the Candela, but greenish tinge, which are YW and GWs, are in grade 1. And then if you want what you would consider to be like on a Macanudo, that would be considered an LW, light wrapper. And what you're looking at would be classified as a BW. So it's a bit more darker cafe kind of shade. And so the highest quality you can get in those color ranges is what they actually classify as a grade 2. But the reality is grade 1 and grade 2 are the same quality-wise, just different color classifications fit to the grades.
You just read a chapter in 50 Shades of Cigars, and it was so hot.
50 Shades of Cigars. That's got to be the name of your book.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is, I like using the Ecuador Connecticut. Look, I've never been a big fan, but if I had to choose between Connecticut, and Ecuador, Connecticut, I'll go Ecuador, Connecticut every time. Not only is it more readily available, but it also it has higher tensile strength. It isn't nearly as fragile, and it also doesn't have a tendency to turn bitter the way some of the other ones are. So, I mean, Connecticut turns bitter much quicker than Ecuador, Connecticut.
So for this particular blend, when you decided you were going to put this blend on the market, was it what was really the main reason behind it? Is it because of nostalgia, because of you desiring those Connecticut's of old, or was it because you were specifically looking something for the Dunbarton portfolio, or was it a mix of both?
Not really nostalgia. I mean, the blend was developed with a bit of nostalgia. I mean, because look, I used to smoke Connecticut cigars. I smoked a lot of them in the 80s. I don't know why. Just over the years, I found them very thin and wispy and more bitter and less depth and less flavor, even more. And you wonder, well, is it just because I'm progressing and I've moved up and I'm smoking stronger, darker style materials, more Maduros, more sun-growns, or are they really just more bitter, thinner, more acrid? And I've actually come to the conclusion that they're just bitter, thinner, and more acrid. That for whatever reason, we somehow got off the rails. And then all of the better blenders, they seem to be focused on making this not your grandfather's Connecticut, making these stronger, spicier, more robust Connecticut's. And I just look at that as an oxymoron. I don't even understand who that cigar is for, because the guy that smokes Connecticut Shade, he smokes it because he wants a milder cigar.
Yeah.
That's why he's buying it. So the guy that wants a stronger cigar, he's not going to smoke Connecticut Shade. So what do you end up happening? You have all these new blends that are spicier and stronger. And sure, the guys, the bloggers and guys like me say, oh, that was really good for a Connecticut. But in the end, we don't start buying Connecticut Shade cigars. We just go back to our sun-growns and our Maduros and our more robust Nicaraguans. And for the guys that do like Connecticut Shade cigars, they don't really buy in on it either, because that's not what they want out of a Connecticut Shade. So to me, it only makes sense that if you're going to make something out of a particular material, it's your job to focus and highlight what is that material and what it delivers. It's like me saying, hey, I want to make something that's like super bitey and robust out of, truffles and lobster. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. So that's, from the blending point of view, yes. And that blend isn't a new blend. I actually made that back in 2005 when I was making the original Sober Mesa blend. Now, waiting, 4 years later, almost 5 years later, to actually release it is really more a mechanic of the marketplace. Even though 50% of the cigars in the market smoked are on the milder, light side and shade side, those consumers are the most difficult to actually get, because they're very locked into their legacy brands. They're smoking their Macs, they're smoking their Ashens, they're smoking their Romeos, they're smoking their Monty Whites.
Yeah.
So they're very locked in. They don't really follow social media in any way at all. They're not typically my kind of genre of smoker. Somebody smokes a cigar blended by me, they expect it to be on the more robust, full side. So I don't have a built-in audience for it. And you don't get much social media benefit or blogger love on milder Connecticut Shade cigars. Yeah, sure, they'll give you a good review here and there, but they don't get enthralled by it in any way. So you're kind of, here you are, your little company, unknown brand, and you're fighting against companies that have huge legacies, legacy brands, built-in customers, multi-million-dollar marketing budgets. You don't get the easy avenue on social media. I mean, just think about it in these terms. If half the cigars smoked in America are mild in shade, why aren't half the pictures on social media of mild shade cigars?
Yeah.
How many pictures do you see of mild shade cigars? Are they even 1 out of 300?
Yeah, it's not many.
No. So, I mean, it's a very difficult uphill climb to get commercial penetration. Now, it's the one with the biggest upside because the market's the largest, but it's a very hard customer to reach as an unknown company. So I was always reluctant to make it one of my earlier releases because I knew it was going to be a crapshoot as to whether it would be successful. And then at the same time, I also kind of got tired of being at a cigar event. Guy would come in and like, hey, I really like, mild cigars. What do you recommend? And I look at what I had and I'm like, I really don't recommend anything. I mean, Sober Mesa El Americano is definitely medium. I think a guy that smokes mild could smoke many of the larger formats of the regular Sober Mesa and be just fine.
Yeah.
But it's scary to them. It's very dark looking. It looks very strong. Even though it is a medium balanced kind of more elegant, nuanced, complex style cigar, but still, to the guy that smokes Connecticut Shade, the guy that's smoking an Ashton Cabinet or a Diamond Crown, Sober Mesa, it's a little intimidating.
Yeah.
So I needed something because what was happening is I'd be at an event and I would end up walking the guy in the humidor and pointing out 6 or 7 other company cigars. I say, yeah, this is the one you ought to try.
Yeah.
So it is just like, you know what? Let me do it. What's the worst that's going to happen? I'm not going to sell a lot of them, but it's there. It's something I don't have in the portfolio. I never envisioned my guys that smoke Mike Rita or Sin Compromiso or, Todos Los Dias for sure, becoming brulee buyers. Just wasn't made for them. It was made for the guy that wants mild, smooth, creamy, just trying to make something that's mild, smooth, creamy, sweet, that's appealing as best as I can make it. So trying to make the best of that style cigar.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see 3 years from now where it stands or doesn't stand.
Well, and guys who like that kind of cigar, guys who like this kind of cigar, that is truly that style. It falls right into that pocket. It's mild, it's creamy, it's smooth. Even through the nose, it's smooth. So I picture a guy going into, he sits down at a table at a restaurant, and for whatever reason, he says, I'm going to order a bowl of ice cream. And he orders a bowl of ice cream, and he starts to eat the ice cream, and the ice cream tastes like sriracha and black pepper. The guy would be pissed.
Right.
The same as if he sat down and ordered, a porterhouse, and it tasted creamy and mild and sweet. The guy would be pissed. So I think, for the most part, I think experimentation and kind of, working a lot of different magic with some blending and things like that is great. But at the same time, especially for this style of cigar, the smoker wants what the smoker wants. The smoker wants exactly that. The smoker wants, like you said, those legacy brands that, people have a hard time letting go of, that's exactly what they want. And if they get something other than that, they're going to be upset. So
I hedged a little. I mean, I made it in the 3 formats that are the most popular with those consumers: Robusto, Toro, and Gordo.
Yeah.
Which is very unusual for me because I almost always make something that's more of a geek format. I happen to like thick Lonsdales. I happen to like, some sort of fat Corona size. I tend to like some smaller things in the mix. But these consumers, that's not what they smoke. And I'm not saying I won't. Look, if Sober Mesa Brulee ends up being commercially successful, or I won't really know by next year, but I'll have a sense as to where it's heading.
Lancero.
No.
I think that, it's not that I'm opposed, and I've actually made that same cigar. The blend is finalized on the Short Churchill size. It still needs a little tweaking in the Lonsdale format before I would consider that one ready for prime time.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm just going to wait and see because now you're making. I think the thing I'm the most surprised about on Brulee is a kind of twofold. I'm a little surprised by the discussion about sweet tip, not sweet tip, because even though I get some sweetness, it doesn't taste at all like a sweet tip cigar. Sweet tip cigars are you can tell. You put a Host in your mouth, you put a Baccarat in your mouth, you put a Drew Estate Laraton or, a Sweet Jane. I mean, it's very evident.
Yep.
You're going to find is as you smoke more Brulés, I think if you smoke 5 or 6 of them, you'll get some that taste a little sweeter than others, and somewhere you'll notice like no sweetness at all on that initial. And that's just the variation in the wrapper. Whereas if I was sweetening it, it would just be consistently sweet all the time from cigar to cigar.
Yeah.
I'm not smart enough to say, hey, we're going to do different sweetnesses on all these cigars randomly. But honestly, I don't even mind the discussion. I don't even care if someone thinks it's sweet tip, to be honest with you. If that's what motivates them to say, hey, I heard that this is or may not, nobody knows, he says this, but he lies, blah, blah, blah. If that's what it takes to get a consumer to try it, to decide whether they like it or they don't like it, they want to add it to their rotation, not add it to their rotation, that's good for me because a lot of times half the challenge is just getting people to try something.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm actually okay with the conversation, to be honest with you. And I don't really care one way or the other, actually.
Yeah.
I am going to, but it's funny because of this conversation that's been occurring over the last couple of months. Next trip to Nika, I'm going to actually make some sweet tipped ones.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I never really
Do it.
Man, heck, maybe I'll release us. The thing is, here's the problem with sweet tip for me. In this post FDA world, I just don't even want to really go there because I just don't know that it's going to be around.
Yeah, it's a big risk.
3 years. I'm not going to go to prison over it or anything, but do I really want to make something that ends? Because look, Baccarat is still a very big selling brand.
Mm-hmm.
At Nat Sherman,
I was just going to say Nat Sherman.
It's like 50% of all of Nat Sherman sales. That one sweet tip cigar, that's half of everything they sell.
Yeah.
Drew Estate, more than half of what they sell is probably sweet tip.
Well,
So there's a market in there. There's a huge market for these cigars, you know. But you know, these are companies that already have established products. Me, if I'm going to invest in something and I have a chance of losing it, and that would kind of suck. But I may make one and just do it as a limited, you know, hey, here you go. Here's a real brulee, you know, sweet, you know. I don't know, but it may introduce even more confusion in the marketplace.
Well, and like I said when we started, you know, this is the first time Garrett and I are trying this cigar, and when I cut it and I lit it up, yeah, it tastes sweet, but I don't.
Well, that's why I named it brulee. I mean, I thought it was sweet too.
Yeah.
It wasn't that I just plucked the name out of the dictionary. The name is descriptive of what the cigar is.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you use sugar glue. You know, it was definitely sweet, and I like it. Real quick, I just want to thank everybody again who's tuned in live to please like and share the video. And we also have a special question from Skip Martin.
Oh, God. Such a troll.
Skip would like to know, how much has your new skinny wardrobe cost you? And did you buy all new, or do you keep different sizes of those crazy patterned French cuffed brick joints for the functions? For the fluctuations.
Crazy patterned French cuff brick joints. I don't even know what we're talking about there. The description of my shirts. I haven't spent a lot. I have a lot of clothes size. I mean, I've been pretty much ranging between 300 and regretfully almost 400 for a very, very long time. So I have a lot of very big, very nice clothes. So I haven't had to spend too much on it. I mean, look, I wear a lot of stuff. I mean, it's like really oversized because it's what I got.
Well, for people who don't know, tell them to walk everybody really quick. Give the Cliff Note version of this wager that you have going with Abe and Nimish.
Yeah, I have this menage a trois of a bet. It's between Abe, Nimish, and myself. It was a 4-month bet. You had to lose 15% of your starting body weight, or you would have to do a cigar event in drag, was the deal. And what ended up happening is all three of us made the 15% mark. Me just barely, to be honest with you. I don't know how close. Yeah, the other guys, I don't know how close they were in the end, but we all just kind of barely made it. It was hard. 15% in 4 months.
Dude.
It was a lot more challenging than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
But we got to the end of the bet and we all won. And look, we understand that's not very exciting for people. I mean, everybody wants us to lose weight and get healthier. Well, most people. I'm sure there's some people who just rather I die, but for the most part, let's say most people want you to get healthier. But somebody wanted somebody to lose, because what fun is that nobody lost?
Yeah.
And so we just basically said, you know what? Let's do another 4 months. And at the end of that 4 months, whoever loses the least percentage absolutely loses and must wear the dress.
Yeah.
And, so that event is on November 8th at Smoke Inn in Boynton Beach.
Oh, nice.
We actually will. I mean, we won't know the loser until like the day or two before, because the weigh-in's at Abe's house, and we're not even going to reveal who lost. We're going to show up together in a limo, and we're going to step out of the limo, and one of us 3 fat fucks is going to be in a dress. That's the way it's going to be.
That's fantastic. Well, I heard Abe on the most recent episode of KMA saying he doesn't care. He said he's good either way. If it ends up being him wearing the dress, he's okay with it. And
I'm kind of there too, because I had to tell you, I was first like really like bothering me. Not bothering me. That's the wrong way. When I started that thing, it was good until I got to about 2.5 months, and then I totally stalled. And I just for 10 days I didn't lose a pound, and I was eating like 1,200 calories a day.
Yeah,
all protein, and in order to not lose the bet, I ended up basically going on like a water and lemon juice and 2 tablespoons of fucking maple syrup a day, for like literally, and then I was like, I treated myself to a slim fast every 3 days. I mean, it was just
wow.
I was so worn out. I was so beat up. I felt so awful at the end of the 4 months because of what I had to do to hit the 15% marker in that last 4 weeks. That when we got out of the trade show, I just started actually actively getting back onto the diet only a couple weeks ago. And I didn't go totally off the wagon those 2 months. I think both Nimish and Abe both gained some weight right after the deadline.
Okay.
I didn't gain any weight. But I didn't keep charging because I just simply couldn't. I felt terrible. Right now, I'm feeling pretty good at the moment. But no, I'm not. I mean, I lost 60 pounds in 4 months. I'll be lucky if I lose 15 or 20 this go around.
Okay.
It's just the way it's going to be. And if that puts me in a dress and a wig and lipstick, then guess what? I'm wearing a wig and lipstick, and and the thing is, I've been thinking about this. I can't pull off RuPaul. So if I lose, I think I'm going the Mimi route from Drew Carey. I think
yes.
Yeah.
So hot.
I think that's the way I'm gonna go, because there's no way I'm pulling off fat sexy. That don't happen. I don't care what dress I buy or wear. It ain't gonna happen. So,
yeah.
It's just this little fun of
No, that's fun. No, that's good. This is actually kind of a going back a little bit interesting question from Tanner. I'm going to put on the screen here, and I'm just curious a little bit too. But Tanner says, "Do you have any concern about reputation blowback from self-styled purists over a sweet tip?" Again, it isn't sweet tip. Yep. I don't know how to prove a negative. All I can do is say it. You know what I mean? But ultimately, who out there is the judge and jury? Well,
consumers.
Why would I be worried about what anybody thinks? Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think, look, I try to stay very grounded. I try to stay as a realist. But honestly, there's very few people in this business that have done what I have done at so many different levels for so many different years, so many times successfully. I mean, what? I'm going to worry about who? No offense to you, Tanner, but do I really care what you think? You know what I mean? I mean, my whole career has been built on doing what I think is right. Yeah. Doing things my way. That's just all there is to it. I make what I like. I put it in a box. Consumers get to decide whether they like it or they don't like it. Yeah. It's just that simple. But no. Am I worried about my reputation? Hell no. Yeah. And in the end, I think most consumers just want that kind of attitude anyway. They want just genuine products made by people who actually give a crap, who are actually, paying a role or playing a role in creating that product. You're not just you're not just a brand manager. You're the guy. You've got your name on it. You've got your reputation on it. But like you said, your reputation isn't beholden to the whims of consumers, bloggers, magazines, some other company. I mean, there's only one person that has to be happy, and that's me. Period. I make stuff. I put it out there. I do the best that I can. I always try to do my utmost. I always try to make something unique, different,
Yeah.
super high quality.
Yeah.
I mean, I think and honestly, look, can somebody tell me what company out there, how many companies out there have cigars that burn the way mine burn, draw the way mine draw, are as consistent the way mine are consistent, year in, year out? I don't have any dogs in the portfolio at all, not a single one. Now I'll admit, not every cigar is for everybody.
Right.
Las Diaz, that's a reach. If you don't like a heavy nicotine bomb, that's a terrible cigar. If you don't like something that's kind of milder and softer and smoother and doesn't give you a super amount of pepper and bite and this and that, Brûlé is a terrible cigar. But it's still, I mean, I'm looking at you guys smoke them. They look like they're performing the way they're supposed to perform. It's just a question of, do you like it or you don't like it? And the thing is, with all of my blends, they're all very distinctly different and unique.
Yeah.
So that they provide a totally different smoking experience. The only exception to that is Mi Querido and Umbagog have a lot of similarities between them. But other than that, all the other ones they're really just totally different. There isn't like a set pattern style of, well, this is what he makes. Whereas, hey, when I buy a Pepin cigar, I know it's going to be spicy and peppery. 95% of what comes out of Pepin's factory. I know when I get most cigars from Roma Craft, they're going to be robust. They're going to be Manbaco. Yeah, you got some intemperance in there. You got the Fiorella and the Wanderlust, particularly the first release, and the lighter wrappers a little smoother. But for the most part, I think we could all agree that Roma Craft makes that robust, rustic, stronger, fuller bodied experience. You know what I mean? That's what they're known for. That's what they're very good at. That's what they make. I think my cigars, there's a very wide spectrum from top to bottom. And I do that intentionally because I don't want to be competing against myself when I make a new brand. I mean, yes, the guys that follow me, the guys that are like really into cigars, they're going to probably try it because it's from me. But ultimately, I always look at it as this is for a particular smoking experience. Now, I happen to be somebody that still smokes across the experience, but there's a lot of people that are just kind of locked into their own style of what they enjoy. And there's nothing wrong with that. But why would I want to just make one thing over and over again with a new brand name on it that's so similar? I mean, I think there's some companies that if you took the bands off and you put them on the table and you switched them around, I think you'd be very hard pressed as a consumer to identify which one is which one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So for me, I always want to offer the consumer something different, something unique, something that there's a reason why they should add it to their humidor, something that might grab a consumer who never smoked any of my cigars, says, you know what, that Todos Las Dias and that, Muestra Nakatamale, that ain't for me. But man, I really like this Brûlé. The Brûlé is really good. It suits me. And so I always try to have that. I'm trying to make a range of products to try to satisfy a wide range of needs and, experience wants for the consumer.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've been doing a lot lately, and this is kind of shifting to food, but it's still cigar related, is I've kind of grown tired of the prepackaged things, and learning as much as I can about grinding, making my own burgers at home.
Okay.
Grinding the meat myself, making my own blends of different types of meat for the right kind of consistency and flavor and all that stuff. And it got me thinking a little bit about cigars as well. So like for meats, when you're putting together different cuts of beef for a burger patty, you've got short rib for fattiness and richness, and you've got chuck for a little bit of minerality and a little bit of depth, and then you've got like sirloin for texture and a little bit of chewiness. Mm-hmm. And if you take that same sort of analogy and you put it into choosing tobaccos and putting together, let's say, you choose one of your blends if you want to, and just how do you go about starting with a blank canvas and saying, okay, this is the kind of cigar I want to blend, and here's the chuck, and here's the short rib, and that kind of thing? How do you go about that process?
All right, there's basically like three primary ways that blends get created. The first way is you have a particular tobacco that, for whatever reason, is, in your viewpoint, extra special or unique, and you want to develop a blend that's going to highlight or focus on that particular ingredient, like they did with Florida Sun Grown. You know what I mean? Or you have, and a lot of times the wrapper is kind of the special ingredient, but sometimes, like I have a blend that has Comstock in it, that is about to be released, and I don't know of anybody that's currently using Comstock in any other products. And it was just something that, hey, I want to make something around Comstock. The second way is you have a kind of a genre in your mind, like I did with Sober Mesa Brulee. I want to make something that's, mild to medium, softer, easier on the palate. So I had a kind of a blend concept, a genre that I was targeting for. The third way, which oddly enough is the way that most blends get made today, is the marketing weenies in the States say, wow, brand X is selling really well. We need to come up with something to compete against brand X.
Yeah.
So let's make something that is in that pocket to make it like that. And those tend to be the three primary ways that blends get made. For me, Brulee was made because I wanted to make a genre, but it ultimately ended up being commercially released because I wanted to really fill in the hole number three. It was just kind of a hole in my portfolio. I have the Nicaraguan Puro, that's a nicotine bomb with Todos. I have that dark, earthy, inherently sweet broadleaf and the Mi Querida and the Umbagog. I have my elegant, balanced, complex thing in Sober Mesa. I've got my flagship and Sin. So I didn't have anything to fill that mild, medium, blonde cigar. So that's why it gets done. Now, as far as the actual blending process goes, 20 plus years ago, it was me kind of throwing darts at a board. It's kind of like put A with B, put B with C, put C with A, put A, B, and D together. It was just keep smoking, see what you like, see what you don't like. It's a very ad hoc way of going about it. Over the years, I've come to learn, like you were describing the meats, that certain tobaccos give me certain characteristics. So they kind of have a baseline as to what these particular tobaccos do and do not do when you smoke them individually and when you pair them with other materials. And the other thing that really gets lost in this whole blending equation is it's not just about flavor and aroma and strength. Those are components of a cigar. You only get those things the way you intend them to be if the cigar burns correctly, if it's constructed properly, if you can get the materials of the right texture to give you the draw that you actually want. So you not only have to think about, hey, I like the way this tastes, I like the way this smells, I like the way it this, but you also have to think about how does it physically function in a cigar? How does it work with the other tobaccos you're putting in that cigar? Because if that cigar ultimately doesn't burn even, that cigar ultimately will never taste the way you intended it, because when it's burning uneven, you're getting the ingredients unevenly.
Yeah.
So you're getting more of X and less of Y. So understanding the mechanics of how that tobacco works and how it plays with the other tobaccos is a critical component to ultimately making a blend successful. I'll tell you one that I personally considered a failure. I remember Camacho used to have one called Triple Maduro. They may still, but I just remember the early release. It was all Maduro tobaccos. It was super full. It had great taste to it, but literally, you had to light that cigar like 30 times to smoke it.
Yeah.
It wouldn't burn.
Combustion issues.
Terrible combustion issues. It was painful to smoke. So even though, man, that 32 seconds it was lit, it tasted great. Who cared?
Yeah.
Because it was just such a hassle to smoke it. So I think a lot of people, they don't really have any comprehension of that, nor do they have any comprehension of how slightly different bunching techniques work better for certain tobaccos, and how you can incorporate the right technique with the right tobacco will actually give you a better result if you do it this way for this cigar and that way for that cigar.
Yeah.
So I kind of, over the last, couple decades, you kind of get a catalog of experiences that you have reference points. You kind of have like known entities. You know what I mean? You know, I know what Himalaya pink salt tastes like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Compared to something else. So what happens now is when I make a blend, I almost call it German approach. It's very unsexy, very unromantic. I have something in mind. I will typically make 4, maybe 5 core blends. I will do those myself. Look, the cigars aren't pretty, but I'll make them myself. And I'll try to decide which of the 4 paths do I want to go down. You know, I'm just using my baseline knowledge. I know that I can make a smokable cigar in an afternoon at this point. I mean, to make a cigar that just you could put it in a box and sell it, it's not a big deal. So I can whip something like that up very quickly. And that's what I do. I whip up something really quick that kind of points the direction I want. I just go through those 4 cores or 4 initial bases, and I decide which one has the most potential. And then I ignore the other 3, and then I take the one and I just start drilling down and doing tweaks and refinements until I get it to the point that I can't make it any better. And then I just decide, is it good enough?
Yeah.
Is it where I want it to be? And if it isn't, I just go all the way back to the beginning and I start over again. So I'm always working kind of like on this funnel principle. I start here and I'm always just narrowing. And when I get to that bottom point, if I'm not happy, I just go all the way back up here.
Yeah.
And I funnel. It sounds like that takes longer, and occasionally it does, but typically it doesn't. And also it takes out all of the randomness. Oh, guess what? I got lucky and I made something that tasted good because I put X, Y, and Z together. Wow, it tastes amazing. You know what I mean? It gets rid of that, because if you're relying on just getting lucky, you're going to end up making a few great cigars along the way, but for the most part, you're going to just make a lot of cigars along the way is what's ultimately going to happen. And it ends up being a big waste of time. So I have this very systematic approach to doing it. And I remember it was kind of funny because I was at one of the factories and I was developing the Sober Mesa blend at the same time. And other brand owner was developing a blend. And the factory people, at first they were kind of like, they were looking at me with 2 heads. And then they were kind of like, wow, you know, this was so much quicker. This was so much faster. It made so much more sense to go this way. And so it's just kind of the way I have come to do it. But it isn't nearly as romantic as people think.
Well,
it's a very engineering, technical kind of approach.
Well, and I mean, sometimes it has to be, you know, the romance, the romance comes after the hard work is done. But there's a couple questions on the that people have brought up, and it's interesting because it's actually something that I highlighted from this article that you wrote for Cigar Magazine about 13 years ago. And the question is about Comstock tobacco, and I just want to read this section, and I highlighted really quick. It says, with the exception of very small plots of Wisconsin Comstock and some broadleaf grown in Pennsylvania, all of the black tobacco cultivated in the United States today are grown within the Connecticut River Valley in northern Connecticut and southern Massachusetts. Now, is Comstock a product that's grown in the soils of Wisconsin, or is that just the name of the leaf of the varietal itself?
Well, there's like 2 variations of Comstock. There's a Wisconsin Comstock and there's a Spanish Comstock.
Okay.
Which are grown in that they were grown in that Midwest northern region, Michigan, Wisconsin, Illinois. It was kind of a local tobacco, and you can tell how old that article is because at that time very few people were using Pennsylvania seed leaf. And now many of us use Pennsylvania seed leaf. When that article was written, nobody was growing filler tobacco in Florida as Jeff Borshowitz is now doing with his Florida Sun Grown. You know, so I mean that article is out of date. But to my knowledge, there aren't a lot of people that are utilizing Comstock. There will be, because that's the way these things work in our business. As soon as one person does something successfully, well, I hope it's successful. Who knows? But you end up getting a lot of people that latch on. And again, you're trying to look. We take dried weeds and we roll them in a tube. Okay? Everything in the end is brown and round.
Yeah.
There's very little, to the average person, one cigar is the same as another cigar is the same as the other cigar. And when I say that, I don't just mean to the guy that don't smoke cigars. I'm talking about people that do smoke cigars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're not into it that way.
Right.
So you as a manufacturer, particularly as a small one, you have to do something more. You have to give them something that they're not going to get. And the thing is, the truth is, the large companies, the big ones, the Generals, the Altiduses, the Swishers, they have the capacity to make way better cigars than I make. They do. They have the tobacco. It all comes down to what inventories of tobacco do you have? Because the more you have, the more you have to pull from, the more super high quality, because there's no such thing as great tobacco. In every crop, there's great, there's good, there's decent, there's okay, there's meh, there's terrible. You're basically just trying to find the best out of any crop, So when you're a large company with huge inventories and stockpiles, you have more of those special things there. The problem for them, though, is they're trying to make something with very wide mass appeal. And if they were to make a brand and it was only to do $800,000 in sales in the first year, or even, they would be like, this was an absolute utter failure. Where I'd be like, wow, I'm doing cartwheels, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's easier for the smaller guy to do those things because it's so much, you don't have the same obligations to the financial ledger sheet that you do in the large companies.
Yeah.
So, and that's one of the reasons why you get some more interesting products from some of the smaller manufacturers.
How many cigars are you rolling a year?
Gosh, you think that would be an easy question. I don't really pay attention. I'll tell you in a minute. Hold on a second.
Well, while you're pulling that number up, DJ beat me to this question. I'm kind of curious, and he is too. What's the flavor profile of Comstock? What are the characteristics that made you want to use it in a blend?
The particular strain I chose has to do more with the aroma and the retrohale properties of it.
Okay.
So it's a very peculiar blend. I'm using it in this like one-off thing that I made. It's called Don Derma. So
okay. So that's in the Don Derma blend. Okay.
Yeah, that's in the Don Derma. So let's take a quick look at this. Where am I at right now?
And then another question while you're pulling that up too, if you can multitask.
Yeah, I can. Spreadsheets.
Is any store exclusives or special run cigars upcoming similar to what you did with the Red Meat Lover?
Well, we have Red Meat Lovers. It's going to be a second round of Red Meat Lovers is going to be launched sometime right around Thanksgiving.
Nice.
We just had the Firecrackers go to the redo of the Firecrackers go to two guys, but I actually talked to Dave yesterday. He says he's 100% sold out, but it's a lie. I think he kept back like boxes to just use internally, whether it be in his stores or I think it's something like if you buy X, you get Y kind of deal. But for all practical purposes, that's sold out. And then I have this little tiny Don Derma project, which is at Secreto. And I think then I got that famous, I have a lot of specialty projects. And then I have the famous 80th, which they literally just took a receipt of, they took receipt of it this week. So I think right now, I mean, I don't know the exact number, but given what we've made and where the plan is, I'm probably going to be somewhere around probably 685 to 740,000 cigars over the course of 2019. So I'm not quite at 1 million units. I mean, look, we're still I mean, it's good.
Yeah.
But it ain't going to make me rich. I can tell you that.
But you're doing it right.
Well, I'm trying to do it right. I mean, I'm doing it my way. It goes back to the thing with the sweet tip. It's like I'm doing what I do, So, but that's kind of where I am, and and ultimately, this is where things are a little different. When I was when I was with JR, you had an established business and you had benchmarks to meet. And when I was at Drew Estate, we were very sales focused and we were very grabbing market share focused. It was, it was always a prime concern for the company. And I don't have either of those criteria for the new company. So I'm very happy. I mean, this year we're sitting probably close to 100% up on the year, and that's fantastic. But at the same time, it doesn't really matter in the end. I just want to make good cigars, and I want to grow the brand, and I want to do it right, and I don't want it to become a burden financially.
Yeah.
I just and it's not like I'm growing it to sell it, and it's not like I have shareholders, and I have no investors, and I have no debt. I mean, the only debt we literally have is the 30-day turn on the Amex card. You know what I mean? That's it. I mean, there's just nothing. I mean, I pay for the tobacco with real money. I pay for the cigars with real money. Everything I have. I have no. I mean, we don't even lease equipment. We own everything.
Yeah.
100% across the board. And probably if I was like trying to rapidly expand the business, not the best approach. Honestly, I think if I poured $1 million into the company, whether it be my money or an investor or a bank's money, I think I could get the company to 10 million in sales, probably within just a couple years.
Yeah. But at what cost?
Yeah. For what purpose?
Right.
Yep.
That's the thing. For what purpose?
Yeah.
To grow for growth's sake is not a good.
Yeah, it just doesn't look. And it's like, what? And honestly, I'm never going to make as much money as I made on an annual basis at Drew Estate.
Yeah.
The chances of me getting back to that salary level doing this is almost impossible. Maybe, who knows? But I mean, it's just not the same. I don't have the same aspirations.
Yeah.
As I had, even just 10 years ago. I feel very different about it.
Another great question from a local guy we call Big Bear wants to know, how did the eating grasshoppers at events start?
Yeah. I hate cigar events. They're so that whole shtick of standing in a store behind a table. Every guy that comes up, you got to explain all 7 different products on the table. You're like, oh, and then you got to like try to talk them into buying something. And hey, guess what? You get a cheap Chinese knife, or you get a backpack, here's a hat, and here's the whole thing is just so. I hate it so much that I just started saying, how can I make this just even mildly entertaining for me?
Love it.
You know what? Getting people to eat big bugs, that's kind of entertaining. I've never had one. I'm not putting one of those things in my mouth. Madagascar kissing cockroach, that's like, it's just good fun, So, whether it comes to, hey, you're going to eat a Carolina Reaper pepper, hey, you're going to pet a boa, you're going to kiss a fish, whatever. It doesn't even matter. Just anything to break up the monotony of it. In fact, I've been doing quite a few of those events because retailers really want you to do them to help their ring.
Yep.
I think I'm pretty much done with it. I really am. To me, something more than just, hey, here's a deal is what makes an event. Just, oh, there's a deal. Well, so what? Why do I need there for you to do a deal? You know what I mean? I'll send you the free cigars. I'll send you the damn Saka Squatch statues. Why am I going to travel halfway across the country, stand 300-pound fat ass up all day, say the same thing 8 million times over? And the other thing, too, for me is I think you would find it when you get to the very top principal levels of most of these companies, sales are what sales are. The sales guys are into it. Some VP guys or marketing guys are into it. I don't get any sort of thrill when somebody buys something. When somebody buys something, my thought is, I really hope they like it. I hope they enjoy it. I hope it's being good. I hope they end up being satisfied with their purchase. But I don't get that little hit of endorphins because, oh, well, that guy was going to buy that, but I talked him into buying this. Or, hey, he was going to buy one, but I managed to convince him to buy 5. You know what I mean? I don't get any sort of bump out of it. Personally, I'm very appreciative. Don't get me wrong. It's absolutely critical. It's essential to the company. I'm very thankful for the support. So I don't want people to think, oh, well, I just don't care. But I'm just saying I don't get any thrill out of the activity of sales.
Yeah.
You know, what I care about is what's the bottom line? Can I operate the company profitably? Can I pay everybody's wages? Can I buy the tobacco I need? Can I make the product consistently? Are customers happy with the product? Will they recommend it to their friends? You know, so it's just the whole sales event thing.
Yeah.
It so sucks. It really does.
Well, and you're more into the, you know, you're more into the creativity part of it and the community part of it than the numbers piece. When somebody buys, you know, when you're in an event with people and somebody goes up to the register with a couple of boxes and buys those, you don't see the dollar signs. You just think to yourself, man, I hope that guy likes it. I hope he recommends it to his friends.
Right.
And what the hell am I doing with that blend?
Everybody works hard for their money.
Yeah.
Period. And they're willingly giving it to you. Yeah. Okay. And so you want them to be satisfied with their purchase. You want them to have a good experience. You know, it's not one of those, oh wow, I got that guy. Ching, ching. Ring the bell. You know what I mean? Yeah. It just doesn't do anything. It just, whereas, you know, like the really good cigar salesmen, they get a little bit of a boost, a little bit of a high from, you know, making the register ring from those transactions. For me, the criteria is, hey, was the retailer satisfied? Yeah. Yeah. You know, what is their normal Tuesday? If their normal Tuesday is, you know, $1,200 and I managed to be in their store and it ended up being a $4,500 day for that guy, if they're happy, I'm happy. Because I look at events as A, it's a way for me to support the retailer. B, it's a way for me to have an opportunity to interact with their staff. Because ultimately, the staff is way more critical than most of the owners of these shops. You know, the guys that are actually on the front line day in, day out, consumer comes and says, hey, I like strong Maduro cigars. Well, what are the 3, 4, 5 brands they suggest? Are you one of those 3, 4, 5 brands when they're making those suggestions? Yeah. So spending time with the staff, and even though you're not directly educating them, they're hearing what you're saying. They're able to ask you questions that better prepares them to be able to, you know, serve their customers better. So that's important to me when it comes to events. And the other thing too is I do actually enjoy the individual interactions with consumers. Yeah. And I think anybody that sees me in social media, my social media, the way I do it is different than the way most people do it. There's a few of us, but there's very few of us. I actively really engage in conversations. I like the back and forth. I like the discussion. You know, I am curious. Even though I'm going to ultimately do what I think is right, I am still curious about what other people think. And I'm even more curious about not what they think, but why they think that. You know, I find that very interesting. And look, and at my core, I'm still a cigar geek. I mean, I buy other cigars. I'm interested when certain products are coming out. I look forward to trying them, you know, so that part I enjoy. But the ring the register part, it's my least favorite part for me. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. One other question that I had about, this is a question I've wanted to ask somebody for a long time, and I'm glad I'm able to ask you, because I hear these terms floated around on different, maybe it'll be different advertisements for certain cigar brands, or I'll hear certain people, you know, in interviews with other cigar shows and blogs and things like that. And I've always kind of wanted to get down to the nitty gritty, because we know and that there's a lot of bullshit, you know, in the cigar industry. And one of the things that I've always wanted to kind of get down to the bare truth of is about, there's this term authentic or original Corojo. Yeah. And
there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of bullshit floating around about it. What does that really mean? If a blender or a brand person says, "Oh, this is real blah 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 Corojo," what does that really mean? And does it in the end, how does it affect the way a cigar smokes and whether or not it's a quality leaf in that cigar?
Well, first off, it has nothing to do with whether it's a quality leaf.
Okay.
I mean, original Corojo is not necessarily better than hybridized Corojo.
Okay.
So that's to me, that's nothing. And look, I don't know, is there really, look, I don't want to step on anybody else's marketing stuff. Again, it goes back to that it's brown and round, it's all the same. So you're trying to come up with something.
Yeah.
Provides a simple hook, a story that gets the consumer to try the product to decide whether they like it or they don't like it.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, I can tell you X, but honestly, who out there can tear a cigar apart and actually tell whether I'm telling the truth or not telling the truth? Right?
Yeah.
There's so few people that can actually even do that. So you're getting told something and you're hoping it's true. But ultimately, there's no way for you to know whether it's true or not. The only thing that you know is true or not true is, did it burn well? Did it draw well? Is it consistent? Do I like it? Do I not like it? What the previous brands from that guy were like, what the future brands have been like, or the newer brands. I mean, these are things that everybody is a master at judging. We're all our number one critic, number one judge. Nobody can tell me what I want to put in my mouth, period. You know what I mean? So that's where it comes to, but you're trying to find a way to make it stand out. So I know, like the Aroa family is one that was one of the first that was growing, that stock Cuban Corojo seed, but I honestly don't know. I mean, is it the same seed from the early 20s? In Cuba when they developed the Corojo strain? How am I supposed to know that? I honestly don't know it. You know what I mean? Does their leaf look a little different? Is the texture a little different? Yeah, there's definitely a difference in that tobacco when I look at that tobacco from Hamastran that's grown by the Aroas compared to other Corojos grown elsewhere. Is it better? Well, that's a matter of just personal opinion as to whether you think it's better or you don't think it's better. But the whole thing of, what's authentic, what's not authentic, I think that's lost in the ether. And it's so complex now because agri-science has gotten so advanced. Even though we're naturally still hybridizing tobacco seeds, we're not genetically modifying them. Even the simple act of choosing which plants you're going to use as your seed lot plants makes a difference into what that tobacco ultimately will become over multiple plantings. So I don't know that anything can be really original because it's always constantly in a state of flux, right?
Yeah.
So I personally, I don't really put a lot of stock in those things, to be honest with you.
Now, when they grow a crop, do they choose just a select group of the plants to use for seeds?
There's typically two ways that you go about that. The original traditional approach was you're growing the crop, and then you will find in the field the plants that are the healthiest. They're showing you the characteristics that you like the best as far as size, shape, and disease resistance. And you will end up selecting those to bag those out to be your seed collecting plants where you're going to collect your seeds from. And almost, not always, but more times than not, it tends to be at the lowest lying point in a field. In any field, there's always a point in it that's lower. Because, these fields some of them are pretty unlevel. You want to try to make them as level as possible, but you never are. So what ends up happening is the plants that are at the lowest point in a field typically end up getting the most nourishment because that's just where everything erodes to. It ends up being the cupping point where everything over time, rain falls in there. So when you're doing it that way, it's almost always at one of the lower spots in the field that you're going to choose your seed plants from. The other approach is you actually grow a specific seed lot, and normally that seed lot is grown very close to the front of the farm, close to the barn. And the reason why is because the guy who's responsible for those plants is normally the one that's the most senior guy at the farm. And he just doesn't want to walk his ass all the way out to wherever to tend those plants. So what they'll do is they will cultivate a small plot close to the front or in a convenient location that's easy to get to by truck, and they will specifically grow the plants and tend them better than any of the other plants with the intention of, okay, these are where I'm going to pull my seeds from this season. So those seem to be the two typical ways seeds are grown, or plants are grown for the purpose of extracting seed for the following year.
Okay. And one other question. I mean, I've got 1,000 other ones, but one that was kind of important to me and related to one of your products is related to Mexican San Andreas tobacco. As far as I know, that there's one or two, as far as I know, particular growing locations in Mexico. But as far as the actual plant, the actual varietal of tobacco that's grown there, is it a particular type that was always native to that area, or was it brought in over time?
Well, there's both. Well, now you have three tobaccos. You have three, yeah. I mean, okay. San Andreas Negra is one of the base criollos. So it's one of the original tobaccos that was cultivated by the indigenous people, centuries ago. And because of the separation of time and distance over time, even if you're not choosing which plants to mate, by swabbing them, those plants are going to get mated just naturally. And the other thing too is you got to remember tobacco has both sexes, so it's self-propagating. So what ends up happening is over time, tobaccos will develop kind of into their own tobaccos in a given region, left to be grown year after year, self-hybridizing, and it'll become kind of their own strain. So what you have is you have five basic criollos. You have the Bahias, the Matas, the Mata Norte, Mata Sul, Este, are all Brazilian. You have San Andres Negro. You have the Habanesa strains that are in the Caribbean and Cuba. You have the broadleaf strains, which are, Pennsylvania and North. Comstock fits into that. PB Barber fits into that. Penn Seedleaf fits into that. And then you also have Indonesian tobacco. And that's probably that's the youngest of the criollos, because those were seeds that were transmitted to the Far East courtesy of Dutch traders in the late 1600s, early 1700s. But then they were isolated by time and distance for a few centuries, and they kind of developed into their own strains. And we're talking about the like Bazuki and stuff like that, TBNs and whatnot. So what you have in Mexico is the original, criollo of Mexico was San Andres Negro. But what ended up happening was the Dutch they were really big in Indonesia, but at one point they got booted out of the country, and they went back to Mexico and they started growing Sumatran in Mexico also. So you have strains of Sumatran that are Mexican Sumatra grown in Mexico. You have the San Andres Negro, and now you have farmers like the Torrents or Carrion that actually grow a few varieties of Cuban strains, the Habanesa strains in Mexico too. But the Negra is the criollo of Mexico.
Okay. And for the for your Sin Compromiso, which I believe you're smoking right now, there was a different process for the cultivation of the leaf, right, that is used for the wrapper for the Sin Compromiso. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So the tobacco that's used on Sin Compromiso it's a hybridized San Andres Negro, but it's not anything that I would consider to be particularly unique outside of the individual farmer that grows it. But what I wanted to do is, I had read this crazy article a long time ago about these Japanese melons called Royal Crown Musk melons. And these Japanese, they like it's so Japanese. They grow these melons, and in the end, they cost like $200 a piece for one musk melon.
Yep.
What they do is they have this vine that would typically support 18 to 22 melons. They pull all the blossoms off the vine. They only leave 2 blossoms. They let 2 melons start. They decide which of the 2 melons they think is the one they like the most. They pluck the other melon and they chuck it. And then the whole vine, about 100 square feet of soil, and one vine that would normally support 22 melons, now is dedicated to just growing 1 melon. And then they do this very Japanese thing. They sing to it and rub it. Who the hell knows what else? They're Japanese. I mean,
Feed it beer.
the food. They're just a little strange, these people. Okay? And the way they do this melon is kind of strange too. But in the end, what ends up happening is they get this melon that just, it's sweeter, it's more buttery, it's more fleshy, it's more juicy. It's genuinely fantastic. Now, is it worth $200? No, it's not worth $200. It's a melon, for God's sakes. Is there a difference? There's definitely a difference. And it's very basic principles. It's, hey, you have a root system and a vine system that's designed to support 22 pieces of fruit, and now you're dedicating all that energy to just 1 fruit. You know what I mean? And it's no different than the guys, the way they grow pot these days. You know what I mean? They trim so much, and they focus on trying to concentrate all the energy into just much fewer, higher quality buds.
Yeah.
Is what they're trying to do. And it's the same concept on this melon. And it was something that I'm like, why wouldn't that work with tobacco? Why not? I mean, it's basic anything. You do this with any plant. If you focus on just 1 flower versus trying to make a bush of flowers, you can dedicate everything to that flower. So we grew this small little pilot where what we do is we strip off the bottom 50% of the plant before it even develops. So just as the leaves begin to bud, and they get to be about 2-3 inches, we pull them off. And by doing that, we're throwing away the bottom half of the plant before it even becomes usable tobacco. And you end up with 2 things. A, you end up basically throwing away about 70% of the crop, 70 to 75 by getting rid of the bottom half, because those leaves would have been bigger, and hence they would have been heavier. And tobacco farmers make their money on the per pound per acre kind of concept.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't make any commercial reason why you would ever do this, because you're really throwing away 75% of the tobacco before you've even grown it. And you're dedicating the same amount of land, you're dedicating the same amount of fertilizer, the same amount of land prep to it. And you're actually dedicating more labor, because now as soon as you start pulling those leaves off young, you now get these suckers. And we always get suckers when we prime and when we debud, but you get an unbelievable amount of suckers when you start pulling those leaves off young like that. So you end up actually spending more time tending that tobacco to, in the end, only make 25 to 30% of the weight that the similar crop would give you. But the concept was that, hey, all the energy is going to go to these leaves, and these leaves are going to be a little sweeter, a little richer, a little this, a little more that. So we grew it, and I kind of liked the way the tobacco turned out. So then we grew a real crop, and not a large crop, a small crop, and we took it and we fermented it. And you're always, one of the things I'm always worried about is you tend to buy into your own bullshit. Just human nature.
Yeah.
So ultimately, what ended up making the deciding factor whether I thought this, and I call it cultivo tanto, which is just my funny name for foolish cultivation, because it doesn't make any sense. Because I'm paying the guy not just 100% for 25% of the tobacco, I'm paying him 115% because there's more labor for 25% of the tobacco. I had the factory, okay, make me 50 toros using the San Andres Negro from the very same farm, very same seed, cultivated the normal way. Make me 50 cigars using the cultivo tanto crop, and let me see what I think. And don't tell me which group is which group. I don't want to know. And I could tell. In fact, they didn't even put them in groups. I actually had to mix them up, and they broke them into 10. They labeled them 1 through 10. So we're like 5 and 5, 5 and 5. Okay. And I was able to tell 100% of the time which ones were the tantos and which ones were the normals. And once I was there, I was like, okay, I can tell the difference 100% of the time. And that's what made me say, okay, let's take the leap of faith and let's go ahead and invest the money in doing this cultivo tanto.
Yeah.
and that's what I ultimately used for Sin Compromiso. And I love the way the tobacco turned out for it. And it's look, it's a little bit of a hook. It's something that look, I'm giving us look. Sins are they're an ultra premium cigar. They're $15 to $20.
Right.
And as a consumer, when you spend 15 to 20, I think you deserve something a little more than the run of the mill cigar. You know what I mean? So this is a way I could do something that makes it, in my opinion, not run of the mill. Beyond the fact that it's a really great cigar, but it's just that little extra bit of something,
Right.
to just give it a little bit more. And I'm really pleased with the results of the product. And it seems, I mean, if sales are to be believed, it seems that consumers are really pleased with the product too, because we've never, since its introduction was like over a year ago, we've never caught up.
Yeah, you've sold out every production run.
Yeah, well, it's not that we're selling out of every production; we're making them every day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, all of my products are made every day.
Okay.
The only ones that aren't are the Muestras. Okay, and that's only in the beginning of the first year's releases of Muestras. After that, like Exclusivos and Nakatamales, those are made on a continual, ongoing basis. Unicorns are only made 1,000 a year, so that one's a limited. And then these projects like the famous 80th and the Don Derma and the Red Meat Lovers, but everything else, it's a constant production item. I'm a big believer in steady state production. I think you make the very best cigars when you make the same cigar, same blend in the same size every single day with the same pair. Gives you much more consistency than this constant, oh, I need this, oh, I need that. So I have to go on the hook. So like if I decide I need more Sober Mesa El Americanos, I have to decide that I need about 200 more boxes a month. Because for me to start a new pair making El Americanos, they're going to produce about 200 boxes a month, that pair.
Yeah.
I have to absorb the risk of 200 boxes a month when I increase my inventory levels, because of the way I like to produce cigars. So I don't make a lot of, I know batch production sounds sexy and it's something that we use as a marketing hook in our business. But the reality is those cigars are the worst. When you start making cigars in the beginning, that first 3 to 4 weeks, those cigars are nowhere near as good of the quality as they will be if those same pairs are making the same cigars continuously 3 months later.
Right.
It's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
You end up getting just better, more consistently, better constructed. You lose far less of them in quality control. There's far less rejection. So,
well, yeah, it makes sense because the pairs, they build over time. They build muscle memory. They build memory, making sure that they're placing everything just the right way and the rhythm of getting that.
It's the rhythm that's so key. So, for example, as an American, we think, man, I don't want to make the exact same blend every day in the same size. That sounds so boring. I'm going to tell you for a fact, 98% of the torcedores in any factory, that's exactly what they want to do. They get paid per unit that passes quality control.
Yeah.
You're going to be dinking around. Oh, today I make a Lonsdale. Tomorrow I make a Torpedo. Oh, I make this really strong, heavy blend. It's got all this really thick, crunchy material in it. Oh, I'm making this silky smooth, mild blend. Oh, I got all this little, lightly textured material. I got to worry about the bunch being too tight because I'm getting none of the texture from the thicker materials that aren't here. They just want to come into work. They want to do their job and they want to go home at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So they're actually happier to make the exact same thing every day out of the exact same materials every day.
That's better for their bottom line.
You can take the Robusto guy and make him a Toro pair. It's roughly the same ring gauge. It's roughly the same proportions on the blend. But, man, when you take that Toro guy and say, hey, I want you to make these Lonsdales, they don't like it. Now, in every factory, too, there's always those few pairs, or in a small factory, maybe one pair, that loves the variety, loves the spice of life. You know what I mean? Oh, wow, you want me to crab Diademas? Fantastic. We get to make Diademas for the next 2 weeks. Oh, wow, I get to make Lanceros? Fantastic. Let me make some Lanceros. But that pair is a minority. And the other thing, too, is torcedores they don't think about when they're making cigars. Like you said, it's rhythm, it's muscle memory. They just do it.
Yeah.
I always tell people the best analogy is just think about when you were learning to drive a car. Your hands were at 10 and 2, and you're paying attention to the mirror. You're checking the line to make sure where you are in the lane. I mean, you're really focused on driving, how to drive, what to do. But you drive now, you just get in your car and you drive. You don't think about any of those things, right? It just what you do is what you do. It's the same thing with these pairs. They're just kind of on autopilot.
Yeah.
So making things the same actually gives you better results in the long run.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Well, we're going to shift gears really quick, and we're going to go into our weekly useless facts of the week, and a couple of interesting ones that I was able to pull up earlier today. So in the country of China, during the span between 2011 and 2013, they used more concrete than the United States used in what period of time?
I didn't understand. I'm on a trivia show. Is there a prize at the end of
Yeah.
this? $100,000. Can I call a friend?
It's just it's
All right, so hit me with the question again, because I thought Garrett would answer it.
in between 2011 and 2013, China used a particular amount of concrete in all their construction in the entire country for buildings and roads and infrastructure and all that. They used a particular amount of concrete, and that amount of concrete was equal to or exceeded the amount of concrete that the United States used in. So that was 2 years. What period of time did it take the United States to use the same amount of concrete?
2 decades.
What do you say, Garrett?
Well, I would think it would have to do with the Great Wall.
The what?
The Great Wall.
They built that a long time ago, bro.
I know.
They surely didn't use it in concrete. That's a given.
But they repaired much of it.
Okay.
About within the last 100 years.
But how much,
in decades?
No. And so they used let's say they use 100,000 yards of concrete in 2 years.
Yep.
How much time did it take the United States to use the same amount of concrete?
Oh, now I'm with you. Sorry, I was multitasking, looking up, getting on my page. My bad. Steve, you went with 2 decades?
Yeah, I'm taking a crap shot. Could be a century for all I know. We don't build anything in America.
I'm going to go 50 years.
All right. So China used more concrete in 3 years between 2011 and 2013 than the United States did in the entire 20th century.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's stupid. I mean, that's bonkers.
3 years.
That's so they're
there's a lot of people there.
Well said.
Very astute, too.
So yeah, that's the useless fact of the week. And now my favorite segment every week is Garrett's got the nub tool on this Sober Mesa Brulee. I mean,
what's weird about Sober Mesa Brulee,
dude,
it's most Connecticut shade cigars, they tend to turn bitter right around the band.
Yep.
And Brulee is actually a cigar that I don't think it nubs as well as my other blends, but it's still very nubbable.
I was just gonna say, so I'm clearly getting a lot of that bitterness, but it is not too much where I don't mind numbing it, and it's still enjoyable.
It's not all bitterness. There's still sweetness there, so there's balance.
Sweetness, yeah. All right, now we are ready for
Numero de los Muertos. I keep hitting the damn spring on my mic stand.
All right, guys. This week's numbers is really fun. We've got numbers of 356 and 212. And what those numbers represent is how many people die by animal or insect deaths in states. So the state that has the most animal deaths or people die by animal or insect death is 356. The next closest state is 212.
And we have to name the states?
Correct.
Oh man, you're killing me. I'm thinking of states that have a lot of insects.
Well, I'm going to go Florida because you have a combination of a lot of poisonous things and a lot of stupid people. So Florida's got to be one of those states, right?
That's got to be a good guess.
Yeah. I mean, doesn't everything start off a Florida man? Florida man, Florida man.
So
all the bad headlines start out Florida man ...
Right.
Florida
man's one of my guesses.
Florida is 171.
Oh, okay.
So it is close third.
Is it a southern state?
Mm-hmm.
Is it Texas?
Texas is number one.
Texas is
Big population.
just because of big population and landmass, I figured.
Yep.
And there's a lot of stupid people.
Wait a minute. I'm going to take offense at that.
There's a lot of smart people in Texas too.
Kevin nails it.
Oh, he got both of them?
He got both
All
of
right,
them.
I'm putting Kevin's comment on screen here.
California.
So Texas and California rank number 1 and number 2.
So it's really a population and landmass thing is really more than anything else.
Right.
Huh.
Now, Steve, your state ranks near the very bottom. Yeah. Can you guess the number of people that die every year by animal and insect death in New Hampshire?
4.
Okay, he's going with number 4. He's going with 4. What are you thinking?
I'm gonna say 50.
Okay. 17.
Oh wow. Well, yeah, Steve's way closer on that one.
And how many of them are by moose? 2? I don't know.
So moose is actually a part of that statistic. It doesn't give me. This is by the CDC, so it's official data, and it doesn't. This particular report doesn't give specifics.
Yeah, well, we don't have any poisonous snakes. We're at the very
Correct
northern range of rattlesnakes, but I've never seen a rattlesnake in New Hampshire. So when I was in Texas, it was a continual problem, and I don't think we really have. I mean, a yellow jacket, a hornet. I mean, we just don't have poisonous insects.
Right.
You know, there's just not a lot. So you're talking about getting trampled by a deer in heat. You stumble onto a moose. You stumble onto a bear, cubs. I mean, there's a very unique set of circumstances that has to happen to die an animal death in New Hampshire.
But dying by moose has got to suck.
I got to tell you, I had one of my scariest animal encounters was with a moose here in New Hampshire. They're very big.
They're huge.
And the thing about moose are they look very docile, but they're also very cantankerous. So a moose can be docile and sweet, and 2 seconds later it bipolars out to just being and there's like no rhyme or reason sometimes as to why that is. Moose are actually, I think, one of the most tricky animals in the United States because they are so unpredictable as to what they're going to do. And everybody, you see a moose and you think bullwinkle, you know what I mean? Moose, and not a good plan, man.
Did you have your close encounter with a bull or a cow?
I had my close encounter with a young bull. It was a good size, and I was grouse hunting with Blossom, and I broke out of a really heavy stretch of popple. It's a popple. How do you describe popple? Popple is like young poplar trees.
Yeah.
But they grow so tight that you're literally having to kind of almost machete your way through them. and then you got thorns and thickets, and I had burst through some that I was hacking my way through bird hunting, and I just ended up literally finding myself confronted with a moose maybe 10 yards away, just staring at me because it heard me coming. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, let me see what's coming out of the woods. And it was and then I just kind of froze. I'm like, and I stood there. And I was in a little bit of a stare down with a moose for, felt like an eternity, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was like 60 seconds before the moose.
Oh.
All right, I'm going to go on. But yeah, moose are beautiful to see. And then I had a second incident that I almost hit a moose on one of my fishing trips to Lake Umbagog at dusk, where a moose darted out in crossing the road, and I missed it by inches at most.
Oh.
We saw a moose up in the Boundary Waters on shore, and we were watching it, and he didn't like that very much. It was a big bull, and he got in the water and started coming towards us.
Yeah.
And luckily we were just a little faster than him in the canoe, but they tip people over in canoes often. And people think they're sweet, cute animals, and they're gorgeous, but
they'll tear you up.
They are territorial, and they'll let you know.
And again, they're unpredictable. That's the problem.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember
there's our Números de los Muertos for the week.
17.
17.
The lowest state on that CDC list, Rhode Island.
5 a year, and Rhode Island is correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because Rhode Island is like the size of my garage.
Right.
And it's pretty densely populated for
Yeah.
area.
Populated for most of it, right? So there's a lot of open. Where in New Hampshire, we have a population of like 1.1 million, and like 1 million of them live in the bottom third of the state. So
yeah.
Well, can you guess the 2 animals that are responsible for the most deaths in the U.S.?
Top 2 animals responsible for the most.
One is an insect, and one is a mammal.
Mammal. I'm gonna go cow.
Okay.
For the insect, I'm going to go with ticks.
Oh, wow.
It's a good one.
That is a good guess.
For the mammal, I'm going to go with bear.
Okay. Nope.
No. Okay.
It is bees.
Okay.
All right.
People have the allergic reaction to the insect stings, so they get anaphylactic shock.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right? So that makes sense because there's an allergy for that.
And the other one was actually news and surprise to me. Feral dogs.
What? We have that many feral dogs in the U.S.?
Between
That's crazy.
rabies and
rabies, yeah.
the other thing was and these statistics come between the years of 2013 and 17 was this report. So bees and dogs.
Well, watch out for those bees and dogs, people. We'll get you every time.
Josh has the number 3.
Oh, mosquito and horse.
Mosquito.
Those were good guesses, though. Mosquito and horse.
Really good one.
So notable smokables for the week, Garrett. One of mine was the new Nat Sherman Timeless Limited Edition for 2019.
Yeah.
I picked that up at Sodi's. That was a good cigar.
I was with you.
I would smoke that one again. What was one of yours?
Don Carlos. I just hadn't had one in a while. The classic. It's mostly a Hemingway Fuente, and I believe it just has a different wrapper on it. But
there's still Cameron wrapper, if I remember correctly. The Don Carlos blend is a little bit more amped up, I think, than the standard Hemingway blend.
Correct.
But I would have to ask Carlito that because I don't know that for a fact. That's the way I remember it.
But I believe you're right.
That Don Carlos blend, it's legit,
dude.
Oh yeah,
it's been legit for 25 years.
Yeah.
Yep.
All day. Yeah. I also smoked another drawer that I was sort of unpacking and sorting through in my humidor. Um, it was very old. It was an old Dunhill cigar. What was it, the 1907 or whatever?
Oh yeah, sure.
Probably a 10-year-old cigar I just grabbed out of one of my bottom drawers that I hadn't seen in ages and smoked that. And it was, I'll be honest, it was pretty lifeless.
Was it really?
After this much time?
Aged
It was,
out?
I don't know, aged out. It was just kind of lifeless. It just kind of sat there. There was no real anything to it. It tasted fine.
Mm-hmm.
But, if I had a box of those, that was still unopened from that many years, I would probably, wouldn't be reaching for them all that often. A little bit dull.
My budget cigar for the week was a Chillin' Moose 2. And, for a $5 cigar, tell you what, that Chillin' Moose series, both the 1 and the 2 are great. And the second, is a really good cigar for $5. And
yeah. I still haven't had the Maduro. So
that's what I had.
Still haven't tried it. So, maybe one of these days.
Steve, how about you? Any notable smokables over the last week that you've had?
Well, look, I've spoken mostly my own stuff, so
yeah.
I'm biased. I mean, I smoked a Sin Compromiso today that was made in a unicorn shape by mistake. And, it was a mix up between me and Yasser at the factory. My Spanish sucks, and I wanted him to make me 10 unicorns pre-production for the 2019 production, just so I could make sure that everything was on par. And somehow that got translated to he made me 10 Sin Compromisos in that shape. And I sent one to someone, and when I smoked it earlier in the year, I smoked the thing I was getting a unicorn, and what I got a unicorn shaped Sin, and I was like, wait a minute, this tastes like Sin Compromiso, and that's when we worked out that the mistake had happened. So they had made 10 of them. So I said, hey, put bands on the other 9 so I don't forget that these are not unicorns because they look like unicorns. And they were okay, but they weren't like, I wasn't like bowled over, but I was smoking them the day after we made them. And the blend wasn't tweaked for the size because normally I tweak everything to work within the format. This was really just kind of the base adaptation to make it work in the format. And I wasn't like wowed by it. But I sent one just as a gift to somebody here's something unique. And he said it was wonderful. And that made me go and grab one of the ones today to smoke. I don't think it was as wonderful as he thought. I appreciate the accolades, but I can see how that can be improved. The other thing that I've smoked a lot of this week is the famous 80s landed. So I snagged a couple boxes of those. And so I've smoked quite a few of those. And I have a Muestra that we're going to release next spring called Unstolen Valor. And I actually didn't make the blend. It'll actually be the very first cigar I sell that I wasn't the principal on the blending. It was kind of a challenge project that I had given. I wasn't intending on making it Muestra at all. I had just challenged Raul Diesla at the Noxa factory to make a cigar on its own. And he's very capable, very competent cigar maker, but that factory doesn't own any products that they personally make and sell as their own. They make things for other people. And I'm like, Raul, no, I want you to make a signature cigar for you. And it took a while because it's kind of like, well, what do you want it to be? How do you want it to be? What do you want me to use? And this, I'm like, no, you're missing the point, Raul. What I want you to do is I want you to make a cigar that you absolutely love, irrespective of me. I'm not part of this equation at all. And then he dragged his feet for like 6 months to even begin. And I finally just guilted him into it. And he made something. He made a couple things that were really, really good. And I was thinking, they have some brands that are grandfathered. And I'm thinking, you know what? Maybe we can make a brand, but nobody knows who Raul is outside of Nicaragua. some people have a little bit of an inkling because of Roma Craft and Esteban Diesla. Esteban and Raul are brothers.
Right.
Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah, they're both Dominican. They're both brothers. They both operate factories in Nicaragua. Esteban at Rome and Nicasueño, and then Raul at Noxa. And so I started thinking that, you know what, maybe a good way to introduce Raul to people is to make it one of the Muestras, because if we made a Muestra de Raul, nobody would buy it because nobody's ever heard of Raul. So I think, making a cigar and attributing to him. That's why I've decided to call it Unstolen Valor, because so many people in our business take credit for work that they didn't really do. The concept of stolen valor is very prevalent in our business. And part of it has to do with the fact that just the way the marketing of things work. I know people, bloggers and consumers, they say they don't like all the bullshit, the nonsense, and the spinning and the marketing. But the problem is you're almost forced to do it.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't do it, nobody tries anything, nobody buys anything to decide if they like it or not like it. So it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, the way the whole thing works.
Yeah.
So I have a cigar that's going to called Unstolen Valor that we're going to release that Raul made. That's why instead of Stolen Valor, Unstolen Valor, because I don't deserve any credit other than saying, wow, Raul, this is really good. Let's stuff it in a box and make some cash.
Yeah.
So I'm becoming much more like a brand owner in that one point. You know what I mean? than my normal MO. So I've been smoking a lot of Stolen Valor, and I'm really pleased with it.
One more question for you from me is, when you are developing a cigar, is there one particular vitola that you do to test that blend out?
Yeah, I work in Toro.
Okay.
6x52. The only time I don't start in Toro is like if it's a Muestra and I know this is going to be a Lonsdale, like Nakatamale. I know it's going to be a Lancero, like, no, leave me the hell alone. But if we're talking about just, hey, it's time to make some test blends, I start by making a 6x52, and that's where I go. Traditionally, 25 years ago, 20 years ago even, the Cuban Corona Gorda size, more of that 5 5/8 by 46, was kind of like the template. But everything, like myself, has gotten fatter over the years, where really 52 has kind of ended up in the middle of the spectrum nowadays.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's kind of a good base point to start at a 52 ring for me. 50, 52, but I start with 52. But I think most factories today do their core development in 52 rings, unless they're making a specific a Liga Vitola specific.
Yeah.
And once I get that done, I then end up saying, okay, look, the blend in the Robusto is identical to the blend in the Toro. Pretty much that whole, normally with proportioning and adjusting, anything that ranges between 48 to 54, 56 is can pretty much be the same blend, with just the materials, the amount of material scaled up or down for the proportions. Once you start getting sub 48, you really need to make a change for between 44, 45, 46, 47 is kind of a grouping. Sub, if you're making a petite Corona, 40, 41, 42-ish, 43-ish, that's a separate grouping. Once you get over 56 and you end up into that, that Gordo territory, the blend has to be tweaked, in my opinion. Now, a lot of people don't. A lot of people just scale up and scale down. But look, the Vitolas smoke differently.
Yep.
They smoke differently because they burn at different temperatures. And because of that burning at a different temperature, it makes the cigar taste significantly different. And it's very rare that you can make a cigar, even with adjusting, that will taste the same in a 44 ring gauge as it does in the 52. There's just no way for you to tweak your way to where, yes, you can tell it's the same. You can tell there's a commonality, there's a thread that connects them. but you can't do a direct, oh, this is just a miniature version of the bigger one.
Yeah.
It's just not possible.
They don't scale.
Yeah, it just doesn't scale. It doesn't translate. I think in my particular products, the one that's the most impressive for that is in Mi Querida. I have a cigar called a Gordita, which is 4x48.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Garrett knows that's like my I smoke them way more than I should. I think it's maybe one of the
The Gordita is one of my favorites. One of the favorites of the office. It's my wife's favorite. The
Yeah.
Gordita literally smokes like it was the Toro hit with a shrink ray gun.
Yeah.
Like it's just smaller, but everything about the way the Gordita smokes, it's like it smokes like a Toro. It tastes the same. It feels the same. It's really kind of it's not normal.
Yeah.
And it's so the Gordita and the Toro smoke very much the same. And I like that. And I end up smoking a lot of Gorditas when I want something smaller. Whereas in the same line, I have a very small, much smaller production, Pequeño Pequeño. We don't really actively sell them. I mean, we sell them, don't get me wrong, but we don't really push them because it's a 4x44 format. And it's peppery. It's more peppery. It's more spicy. It's more bitey. You know what I mean? Which for some consumers is great. For other consumers, no, it isn't as good. I'd rather smoke the Gordita, which is 4 ring gauges larger. That gives me the same experience as the other Mi Queridas. But, that 4x44 Pequeño Pequeño, it's kind of like off on a little island of misfit blends of its own within the Mi Querida family.
That's why I like the Gordito, because it's just, I think it's out of all the sizes in that blend, I think it's just got great balance.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
it just hits the nail on the head for me, and that's why I've smoked through so many boxes of them, because I think it's just.
Another thing that's surprising to most people when they smoke my smaller formats is how long they last. So you look at a Gordita. Gordita's a 4-inch cigar. You're like, oh, this is a 35-minute smoke. No, that's like legitimately a 45, 50-minute smoke.
Yep.
Gordita will last as long as almost any Robusto in the marketplace.
Yeah.
The general rule of thumb, most of my cigars do tend to last longer. The ones that don't, that I think are more on par with the traditional burn through time, Sin Compromiso is more traditional. Brulee is more traditional. But the other stuff, the heavier bodied stuff, it all smokes a little slower, a little cooler, takes a little longer.
Yeah. So, hey guys, for you watching and listening, a couple things coming up next week on the 17th. We have Mike Stepson-Kebich, if I'm saying his name right. I never say his name right, from Cigar Hustlers podcast and Cigar Hustler Retail. He's going to be on the show a week from tonight. And the following week on Tuesday, the 24th, Mr. Jeff Borshowitz from Florida Sun-Grown Tobacco and Corona Cigar Company.
You're a great guest.
What's that?
You're a great guest.
Oh, we've been very fortunate.
Yeah.
People have been very, very receptive to getting on our show, and we've been very fortunate. Really grateful to everybody who's been on our show, and we have some more coming up later on, even into October. We've got some guests in October. So there's some good stuff coming up. So I will, we'll advertise those and get the word out about those as soon as we can. Steve, tell everybody a little bit about any of the big things you've got coming up over the next month. I know you've got basically a completely booked September and October. So give the listeners and viewers a little taste of what they can see coming up from you soon.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're just now shipping the Mi Querida Tricky Traca. So those are starting to go out to the stores. The other thing that we have that's now going out to the stores is the 2018 production of the unicorns are now being shipped out to the retailers. So those are going to start hitting the shelves in the very near future. We're 100% sold out of those. So whatever they bought is all there's going to be. There are no more for the remainder of the year. I have a couple anniversary events this week. One at my friends at Two Guys Smoke Shop, their big anniversary dinner. And I have the twins anniversary this weekend. and then like many in our business, I'm jetting off to Europe for Intertabac, and I'm doing an event. It'd be my very first cigar event ever in Europe, and that's a Cigaragua, and I think it's a sales event. And I think I'm going to be bored stiff. So I hope the Dutchies bring me some Stroop waffles and some beer, so
Yeah.
to get me through the day. So,
Yeah.
so I'll be at Dortmund, and then I have to go back and look at my calendar because I didn't even remember what you when I was telling you earlier, and I was actually literally looking at my calendar. Oh, and then I got the Don Derma release at the very end of the month with Ronnie at Secreto Cigar Bar in Ferndale, Michigan.
Yeah.
I don't know. Does he like to be said he's in Ferndale, or does he like to be in Detroit? I never.
Well, we'll say Ferndale. The address is Ferndale. We'll say Ferndale.
Yeah, the address is Ferndale. It's right there, just north of Detroit proper. It's part of that whole Detroit metro area.
Yeah.
And Steve, for those who maybe don't have a retail shop close to them, or maybe they don't carry your product, where can people find your cigars?
We're not in that many stores. I don't actually know the number because I don't keep track, but I guess we're probably somewhere between 350 and 400. Like I said, I don't know, but we're in pretty much all of the best ones.
Yeah.
And we're at Corona, we're at Smoke Inn, we're at the big online guys too. I mean, we're at our accounts are very different. Part of it has to do with just the way we approached it from jump. We don't do a lot of active solicitation of accounts. I'm kind of the view that it's better to just wait until they make the conscious decision to carry the product. Because listen, what am I going to say? Oh, my cigars are the best. Oh, my cigars sell great. Oh, you know what I mean? It's just nonsense they hear all the time.
Yeah.
So it's actually better, in my opinion, to wait until they make the conscious decision to bring it in, whether it be, hey, they're interested, they like it, they want to have it in the shop, or they're just tired of being pestered by consumers coming in and say, why don't you carry this? I want you to carry this. And finally they just crack and like, okay, I'll carry it. I don't want, because every retailer's shelves are full.
Yeah.
Yep.
So in order to bring my cigars in, it means some other person's cigars have to go out.
Right.
You go into these humidors, there isn't a linear inch of space anywhere in anybody's humidor in the country.
Yeah.
So we've kind of taken this approach where it's just better to wait. And what that means is we have this kind of odd mix of really small, little accounts, and we have really massive, giant accounts at the same time. And the other thing too is, we really don't sell based on deals and discounts. I mean, we did the IPCPR deal this year. I think we offered something in January or February, but it's not normal. Most companies have like ongoing specials for the retailers that every month there's something, that you can get a better bite of the apple on. And just because we've been selling through, there's been no real reason to do that. I mean, look, if it gets to the point that I start seeing, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of inventory just stacking up and growing, then maybe I'll have to change my tune. But that hasn't been the case so far. And in most weeks, it appears like we open 2 or 3 new accounts a week right now.
Man.
And it's just really literally from them reaching out to us. And for consumers that are interested, though, if you go to our website, dunbartoncigars.com, there is a retailer locator on there. But yeah, there's
perfect.
There's tons of shops that sell our product. The problem for me is very few shops carry everything.
Right.
Look, we have a surprisingly wide portfolio at this point.
Right.
And so, look, shop, if you're a shop and you got 600 facings, well, you can't dedicate, 15% of your humidor to Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust, and I don't blame them. I understand.
Yeah.
So you kind of, sometimes I always tell people, just because they're on the retailer locator site, I'd recommend calling them before going out of your way to find out, do they have what you're particularly looking for in their inventory as a part of what they stock. Because not many retailers stock Bacano.
Yeah.
Not all retailers are Muestra accounts. Not all retailers are Sin Compromiso accounts.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always wise. The bigger online people, they carry a pretty wide swath. And even the mid tier guys,
Yeah.
they do too. But if you want my cigars, they're findable.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah. Well, we really appreciate your time tonight, Steve. I know you got a busy month, and we appreciate you giving us your Tuesday night to our viewers and listeners. And I know everybody appreciates the information and just hanging out and chatting about everything from sports to animals to cigars and tobacco and everything else in between. So thanks very much for your time.
Oh no, it's a pleasure talking to you guys. Thanks for the invitation. I enjoyed it.
All right. And hang with us on the studio after we close out the live broadcast, if you would, please.
No problem.
Hey guys, for all of you watching and listening, we appreciate your time as well. Thanks for continuing to follow us on How About That Cigar. There's new content up on howaboutthatcigar.com, so take a peek at that. There's some new stuff up there you can look at. If you have any questions, as always, hit us up on Facebook or send us an email on the website. And until then, burn cigars,
not bridges.
Take care, guys.